Let's turn over then to the other side of the table because James Creedon joins us for this evening's Media Watch.
Hi, Nadia.
Good evening. You're going to be starting us off then with our top story tonight, Emmanuel Macron in the United States. And some media have dubbed him the Trump Whisperer. Why is that?
That's right. So it comes from horse whisperer, somebody who has particular sort of facility to influence horses. And so the presumption being that Emmanuel Macron has the ear of the US president and is able to influence him in a sort of a subtle manner. It made its way into the headlines of a number of different newspaper articles online. The Trump whisperer says there is no plan B on Iran as he travels to Washington. Over at The Guardian, Macron to put Trump whisperer skills to the test. They spoke to an historian at Sciences Po University in Paris, Thomas Snargaroff, who said essentially Paris can't envisage its multilateralist strategy, I suppose a central plank of its foreign policy at a world level, without the US. It's a pragmatic decision, essentially. Meanwhile, the AtlanticCouncil.org, they also were investigating this term. They spoke to the French ambassador to the US, who sort of poured a bit of cold water over the term and poured a bit of cold water over the whole notion of a, quote, bromance, saying that essentially it's important to have good relationships with the most powerful man in the world. The New Yorker also were looking into the whole sort of relationship. They had a couple of interesting remarks. They said Macron's seduction of Trump has been a determined exercise. He was going to be attentive to the American president no matter who he was. But the fact that Trump has so alienated much of the rest of the world, coupled with the fact that Angela Merkel and Theresa May are somewhat weakened for different reasons, meant that there was an opening for Emmanuel Macron to have a particular relationship, I suppose, working relationship with Donald Trump. Macron is a tricky friend to have, though, according to The New Yorker, and they cite quotes from a book written by François Hollande, his spin doctor, Gaspard Ganser, and he relays a couple of conversations, quotes from Macron about Hollande. So, of course, they were particularly close. He was the budget minister in Hollande's government. He had promised his former boss that he would never run for the presidency. He subsequently did. And he said in that conversation, it offers a glimpse of the competitive advantage that Macron gleans from proximity. He has one weakness. This was a quote about Hollande. He's vulnerable to pressure in one-on-one conversation. So this is what Emmanuel Macron said of Hollande. I suppose some would also say that it's true of Donald Trump. And indeed, there is this sort of idea that comes back again and again that he makes decisions based on conversations he's just had or a person he might have spoken to on the phone who has a particular influence on him. And you had, this whole horse whisperer conversation was happening on Twitter as well. Is Emmanuel Macron really a Trump whisperer? And one comment there by Matthew Hoffman saying it matters not at all if Macron convinces Trump of any particular policy. What matters is who last speaks to Trump before he announces a decision. Not sure everyone would agree with that, but it is an opinion. Finally, a comment by the head of the Paris bureau of The Economist, Sophie Peder. France's President Macron is emerging as the smartest European handler of Trump. He doesn't seek alignment or affection, but to tame Trump's wilder instincts and keep him in the liberal conversation.
James, next up for you then on Media Watch, hashtag royal baby is of course trending, not just, you tell me, in the United Kingdom, but all over the world.
Well, listening to French radio this afternoon, it was the first headline at a certain point, and there was even an announcer congratulating the royal family directly. Not sure they were listening in, but certainly it got a lot. There were royalists all over sort of emerging and very enthusiastically showing their glee at the news. Also, this kind of fun fact, Princess Charlotte is the first in history, that is the second child of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge. She's the first in history not to be moved down the line of succession. And there you have the line of succession with just royal baby in there and a few wild cards such as a cup of tea. That's not true. And then, of course, there was every single baby is a royal baby. Some trying to find baby names such as Prince, probably not. And I go for that one, Prince James. I think that's
as you should do, I think. Tell me then, James, Louis XIV, the long dead French king, says there's a message from beyond the grave. Can you tell us how on earth that's possible?
Okay, so he's dead for 300 years. It is an automated message. It's not really him.
I see, there we are.
I think we can see here in a video that you can find on Twitter, Canal Plus have been they're soon to release the third season of Versailles, the series, and what they did to kind of mark the occasion is they created this automated voice of Louis XIV based on the fact that he was tall and thin, therefore had long vocal cords, therefore a deep voice. He had half of his upper palate removed by a dentist. So based on these sort of criteria, they were sort of able to fiction up what his voice might be like, imagining a 300-year-old French man speaking at around 60 years of age. So shall we take a listen to a special message he had for the royal baby?
I think we definitely should.
Lorsqu'il prêtera allégeance à la couronne de France, alors je ferai part de mes salutations.
So translation there, when he expresses his loyalty to the French court, I will send him my salutations. There is no longer a French court, although some do compare the French presidency to a kind of Republican monarchy. But anyway, it was just a bit of fun. And you can send your questions to Louis XIV on Twitter if you want.
If you're particularly keen. All right, James, thank you very much indeed. James Creedon there with Media Watch. And that brings us to the end of this half hour of the show. Thanks for watching. Much more news still to come after the break.